I know it's my own tea, but it's so good. So, alright, I hold my hands up. A few videos ago, I told a little fib. I said that I was in London for a meeting and I was gonna swing by Bird and Blend just to see what they had in because I was in the area. My meeting was at Bird and Blend about this tea. I have collaborated with the wonderful tea company Bird and Blend on Star of the Show, my very own tea blend. Can you believe it? I have been drinking cups of tea in videos since the dawn of my channel. My YouTube persona was very much founded on sitting down with a cup of tea and having a chat, to the point where I was inundated with mugs and packets of tea at stage door. It became very on brand for me to always have a cup of tea in my hand. And nothing much has changed apart from the fact that I suddenly realised that I actually quite liked coffee when I was around 24, 25. But the love and consumption of tea never wavered. There was just an extra beverage on board. And now I've got my own blend, which is something I never thought I would say. And it was eye-opening to see the process that goes into creating a bespoke blend. And Bird and Blend as a company have so many incredible flavours that aren't just your average builder's brew, Earl Grey tea, and then a few like fruity herbal concoctions. No, we are talking chocolate digestives, rhubarb and custard, Parma violet tea, whatever you can imagine, they can pretty much turn into a tea that will taste exactly like what you were imagining. There is one such tea called Enchanted Narnia because they've managed to make it taste like the Turkish delight that Edmund eats in the White Witch's carriage. And when I first tried it, I had it cold with lemonade, which blew my mind in of itself because having tea with lemonade was something I had never done before. Never even crossed my mind that you could have tea with lemonade. So that was my mind blown part 1, and then it actually tasted like Turkish delight, mind blown part 2. So where do you even begin coming up with a brand new blend of tea, I hear you cry? Well, first things first, you've got to taste a lot of tea. A rather wonderful thing, especially when Bird and Blend have so much tea to sample. So I went into one of their stores and I literally spent an hour just slurping tea, and I learnt a trick. You're meant to properly slurp a teaspoon of tea, and the more you can slurp it, the better, because it's something to do with the air spreading it across as many taste buds on your tongue as possible, so you're getting the fullest flavour. Now, I didn't go in completely unburdened with ideas. I did have a criteria that I wanted to fulfill. Now, I drink the most tea when I'm performing, and this is because I always go for teas that are soothing to the throat, and I will have a cup of tea in the interval. And I usually want it to be 0 caffeine because the interval of a show is usually 9 o'clock at night and I don't want to be kept up by caffeine. And I usually go for something that's good for me, that's got honey or ginger or lemon in it, something that's going to be soothing to my throat, and even if it's not, something that feels like it's soothing to the throat, something that maybe, you know, is a, what's it called? The placebo effect. Even if it's just the placebo effect and it's not actually doing anything, even if my brain thinks that maybe it is doing something, maybe that's enough for me to get through the second act of a show. But then on top of that, I also want it to taste good, because there are teas out there that are comforting to the throat, that are meant to, you know, be medicinal in some way. They taste like a fart in a mug, and no one wants that. I was open completely to listening to the experts at Bird & Blend. I wasn't married to my ideas, but I did go in with the ideas of 0 caffeine, something vaguely medicinal and will make me feel like it's doing something good to my voice during a show, but it had to taste good. And so I tried nearly every tea in the shop. Whether they fit that criteria or not, I tried them all. And then we started to narrow down the flavours that I liked in certain teas. I really liked a citrusy flavour, but I thought that lemon was a bit too obvious, so I liked the orangey flavours. Ginger was always going to be a must. There are some teas at Bird & Blend that have just like a hint of ginger, but I like the ones that had like a real hit. And then I also loved the floral notes of rose and hibiscus. But as luck would have it, they didn't have a tea that encompassed all of those things, and so that was our starting point for the blend. So the next step in the process was the incredible experts at Bird & Blend going away and creating versions of that blend that we had decided upon within the shop, and it was my job to go away and come up with a name. It had to be something theatrical, because the whole premise of this tea was essentially that I was creating something for myself to drink in the interval during a show. And if it worked, if it was yummy and it was caffeine free and it made me feel like I could go and sing a complicated Sondheim score 8 times over, then clearly I wouldn't be the star of the show, but the tea would, and therefore star of the show had to be the name. So then a few weeks later I got a call to say that I could come back into the shop and try 3 different variations of the blend that we had discussed. And I felt very much like Goldilocks, because one of them tasted a little bit too medicinal, one of them tasted too tasty and not quite medicinal enough, and the third one was just right. And then to top it all off, they said that they could make it sparkle in the mug. They were gonna add edible glitter so that it actually is the star of the show because it shines. What? Magic. And so Star of the Show tea was born, and we held a little launch at their wonderful shop. It's really a magical shop in Portobello Road. The shelves of tea go on for miles. It's got tables and chairs at the back where you can actually have a drink in the shop. It's just glorious. For tea lovers, I highly recommend that you visit any of their branches of Bird & Blend, but the Portobello Road shop is just chef's kiss. So wonderful. So we held a little launch at that branch of the shop, and we had some wonderful people who won a competition to join us for a couple of hours to have mocktails, cocktails, and of course, hot tea. And I was asked to give a speech, and I am just not comfortable with public speaking. So I wrote a poem instead, thinking that that would be easier. And being pregnant and nervous, suddenly my lungs felt like shriveled, dry raisins, and I could not breathe. I could not catch my breath. If you want to listen to said speech, here it is. Ever since I first sat down and made the choice to vlog, my hands were empty, sad and cold, and I thought, this feels odd. What says, let's chill and have a chat? You're in good company. What says all that and so much more? Well, of course, the answer's tea. So I never made a video without a tea to glug. Much to my parents' dismay, I bought 1,000 mugs. From Builder's Brew to lush Earl Grey, and that breath. From Builder's Brew to lush Earl Grey to fruity herbal mixtures, sometimes with cake or biscuits too, or scones with all the fixtures. And in HD 1080p, we'd see what topics we could weather, and a cup of tea was all it took to bring us all together. Now, it's been quite a while since my steady vlogging days. I'm no longer 18 years old, and life has changed in many ways. From barricades to flying cars, from crossbows to glass slippers, from chalk circles to King Charlie's crown, I'm now an interval tea sipper. So when the team at Bird & Blend said, what's your favourite flavour? I thought, of all the tea I drank when wearing glass shoes or blue blazers,
something ginger and rosy and lemon, no caffeine to give me the jitters, with orange, hibiscus, and to top it all off, when you stir it, it sparkles and glitters. Might seem a tall order, but at Bird and Blend, they don't know the meaning of no. So it's my honour to stand here today and present to you the star of the show!
And then I got to sit and chat with everyone, and classic me, they were like, you know, we're going to allow sort of half an hour for everyone to have like a little meet and greet and a photo. I wouldn't stop talking. It ended up being a lot longer. Talking too much has always been one of my biggest problems, what can I say? But all in all, it was a wonderful couple of hours spent in tremendous company with glorious, glorious beverages. What more could a woman want? And now, you can get the tea yourselves. It is available for purchase on their website and in their stores. So if you happen to be passing a Bird and Blend, pop in and ask if they've got some Star of the Show. Or you can order yourself a pouch or a really fancy tin, as you saw at the beginning of the video, online. For anyone who wants to know, I take my Star of the Show with a spoonful of honey just for that added soothing sweetness. And I feel like I'm gonna have to stockpile this for when I go on tour at the end of the year and drink it in the interval / on stage. I had a cup of tea on stage with me in Act 2 of my tour last year, so I'm gonna do the same this year, but this year it's gonna be my own tea. So cool. So if you want to get your hands on Star of the Show, I will put it in the link below, and I hope you like it. Cheers. It's empty, I drank it all, but cheers anyway.